employees with Tremont School, and a team of professionals who have educated and supported my son this year. Our principal, Jandria True, is a tireless advocate for all students, particularly those with special needs. My son's one-on-one, Holly Rager, is very dedicated and has taken on roles beyond her job description to ensure my son's IEP's goals were being addressed. Our OT, Katie Walsh, and our speech-language pathologist, Karen Ricketts, go above and beyond every day for our students. When we were down 2 special ed teachers this year, Karen volunteered to take on the role of case manager for my son. That said, I'm disappointed by how the district is handling his case. There are things that came out of my son's latest IEP meeting that really concerned me, one of which was the discovery that my son was not enrolled in summer school, despite the fact that I signed him up the day that enrollment opened. No one would have communicated this to me unless I asked. I was told that this is due to the fact that he has not completed kindergarten, regardless of the fact that he is of kindergarten age. I learned that summer school is open to all students K through 8, and because of high numbers, students are only guaranteed 2 weeks. There are problems with this model. Firstly, summer school should first serve our most vulnerable students. The purpose of summer school is to prevent regression in students who are at the most risk and provide ESY accommodations of SPED students. And ESY is extended school year, yes. When we had summer school at Tremont, we asked faculty to identify students who had the most need and were at risk of regression. These students had priority. This is not the case in the current island-wide model. Secondly, ESY services should be spread out as much as possible rather than be crammed into a 2-week period. This is essential to mitigate regression over a long 10-week summer. Thirdly, pre-K students should receive summer school services now, not next summer, now. We have had pre-K in this district for 4 years and we still don't offer summer school services? That's unacceptable. I enrolled my son in pre-K because he needs more school, not less. Not letting him be in the regular summer school classroom undermines this reasoning. I say the regular classroom because the concession that was offered was that my son could attend the Sun Room, Students with Unique Needs Room, programming for 2 weeks. Things were assumed about my son because he is under the umbrella of Sun. No one should assume things about our students and what is best for them without getting all the facts. My son is fully integrated in the regular classroom and summer school should mirror this. Following my son's IEP, I asked for a follow-up meeting, which is my legal right as a parent. I was finally given a date last week, actually 2 weeks ago now, that will be 2 months after I initially requested the meeting. I responded this did not meet the state's requirement of having a meeting within a reasonable time frame. I did not get a response. I'm getting the sense that they're hoping that if enough time passes, they won't have to address my concerns. Despite having 3 special ed directors who are paid quite a bit of money, there doesn't seem to be anyone at the district level who is overseeing summer school programming through a special ed lens. I'm asking that the school board require that more clearly defined parameters around summer school be created so that these problems are solved. We all invest heavily in summer school, so this should be a priority. Lastly, I want to address equity. I'm a parent who has the time, means, and resources to advocate for my child. How many special ed students have parents for whom this is not an option? That said, it is not easy and it's upsetting for me to have to state this, especially as someone who works in this district. It shouldn't be so hard to be an advocate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you, Katrina.
Is there any other public comment?
Yeah, I would like to speak to that issue. Mary McKay, I'm the gifted talented specialist at Connors Emerson School in Bar Harbor, and I'm going to speak as a parent. I have a son who is now 44 years old and gainfully employed and owns his own home and doing very, very well. And I believe it is due to the efforts of the school system that he attended as a youngster and the preschool project of Hancock County. He started getting services at the age of 3. He's on the spectrum. He has ADHD. He had many, many challenges. And by the time he got to school, the City of Ellsworth instituted a pre-kindergarten program because there were a number of students who needed something before kindergarten in order to be successful. He was one of those lucky students. We also had intervention from Spurwing in Portland who tested him and found out all the things that he needed. The school system, after a lot of advocacy, finally followed through. But one of the most important things that happened for him in the school system was the summer program. Because for those students, that lag from the end of the school year to the beginning of the next school year is way, way too long. And without that support, I don't know that he would be where he is today because he needed it. And I just want to support the previous speaker and say that it is desperately needed a more extensive summer program for these kids so that they can be successful members of society when they leave our school systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. That brings us to approval of minutes of 13 April 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, reports and updates. I'll turn it over to Mike to give the superintendent report.
So, welcome everyone to the month of May. I'll start by reading our district service promise, which is interrupting educational inequities and creating schools where every child and staff member thrives one conversation at a time. Our May student enrollment is up 3. We're at 1,328 students, where in April we were at 1,325. Staffing update, as you know, we've had plenty of retirements and staff moving around, and we're making gains in all of the areas that we're looking for. We're still struggling with special education and speech and language pathologists, but right now a bunch of our positions are getting filled as we go through this sort of period of people leaving and people getting on. Some of our school highlights. The high school had its senior prom over the weekend at the Bar Harbor Regency, the Stone House. And just so you know, HCTC Accepted Students Night is on May 15th, so that's up and coming. Over at the Longfellow School on Cranberry Island, students attended the Historical Society's Yellow Schoolhouse, experiencing school as it was in the 1890s, and our own Wendy here is sort of the school marm. I don't know if you knew that. And 5th and 6th graders took part in the 5th grade day at Camp Beechcliff. Connors Emerson Family STEAM Night was an amazing culmination of a lot of hard work and learning. And 7th graders explored the Silk Road by examining how geography, movement, and human decisions shape history. At the Trenton School, 8th graders will be serving up a meal of spaghetti before the annual town meeting. They've been doing that for years to bring people together to share in food before they go off and vote on town affairs. And students took the time to write thank you cards for their teachers in preparation for Teacher Appreciation Week, which was last week. At the Pematic School, 1st grade visited the Wendell Gilley Museum, and middle school social studies teacher Lynn Bean and MDI Historical Society's Rainy Bench are collaborating on an event to incorporate history and art stemming from the writing of the Declaration of Independence in celebration of our 250th birthday. So I'm really interested to see what they come up with. On Swans Island, Mark Kerrigan visited 8th graders to fill them in on all they needed to know to become a freshman. And Swans Island is preparing for a visit from all 4th graders from around the district for the annual 4th grade day. In Mount Desert, 2nd graders embarked on their bacteriology unit with the Jackson Lab scientists. And I do know that Principal Dorr wants to get rid of all carpets in schools after that event. 3rd through 8th grader students participated in stop motion animation workshop in which students blended technology and storytelling. And over at the Tremont School, the Bass Harbor Library is the place to go to see a vibrant, colorful collection of artwork created by students. It'll be viewing up until the 15th. And 7th and 8th graders competed in the Windstorm Challenge at UMO They did not win, but they learned a whole heck of a lot. In terms of budgets, we had Pematic passed their budget. MDES passed their budget. These were last week. And tomorrow we have Tremont, and the following week we have Trenton, and then we round out the year with Frenchboro.
And Bar Harbor, right?
And Bar Harbor. And the MDI updates, I wanted to update a couple of our district-wide things that sort of happen. And so we have the 4th grade day on Swans Island, and this is where students from across the district travel to the island for an opportunity to come together as a grade level. And it's sort of the beginning of their journey for the future of MDI graduating class of 2034. It helps students begin to build relationships and a sense of shared community. The additional goal is to provide mainland students with a deeper understanding of life on an outer island and the unique strengths and experiences our island communities have. And students rotate through learning stations with island readers and writers. And they do a variety of stations that sort of enrich the reading experience. And this experience sort of strongly reflects our vision of a graduate by helping students become responsible and involved citizens, integrative, informed thinkers, and self-directed learners, clear, effective communicators through collaboration, community, and connection. And it's just a real, this has been going on for years, and just is something that all teachers and students sort of look forward to. It's a great experience. And the 5th grade Outdoor Safety Day, that I wanted to remind students that day began after 2 local students fell through the ice while snowmobiling on a cold winter day. And although both students were found safely and were not injured, one of the mothers helped create this day so that children would learn some basic outdoor safety skills and would be able to build on those and learn those skills in concert with their other students throughout the district. And then I wanted to share about the 6th grade Eastern Maine Aspiration Scholarships, where students explore a career path that interests them, and they write an essay about their findings. And essays are reviewed by a committee, and then those students selected receive about a $100 scholarship and invited to attend an award ceremony. And this is a great opportunity because it might be one of the first times that students really start to think about their aspirations and what they might want to do to explore their futures, and it sort of leaves them with a stronger sense of direction and motivation. So, in those middle years, these are really key things that we do as a district in supporting our vision of a graduate, and are sort of really key wheels in the process of education here within the district, and helps bind us together as a district. Our staff spotlight, Natalia Pager, 2nd grade teacher in Trenton, was highlighted at the Maine DOE for the way she connects classroom learning to the outdoors through hands-on exploration, from tracking seasonal change with phenology maps and observing animal behavior. And our list of retiring teachers and support staff is continuing. We have Lorena Beal, who is the sunroom teacher at Tremont. She had been there for 19 years. Lorena was an ed tech, math interventionist, and she rounded out her time there as Tremont's sun teacher. Over her years of service to the school and community, no matter her role, her goal was to help students learn the skills they needed for a productive life. And Mary McKay, our GT teachers at Connors Emerson, after finishing 8 years there, Mary has done a lot of teaching over the years before landing at Connors Emerson. She truly enjoyed teaching all students through the skills of problem solving, which she taught to all kids, and teaching algebra and geometry to students. She will be missed, and so And I just did my exit interview and learned quite a bit, and it was a lovely experience. So it's great to see our teachers sort of moving on. MDIRSS reorganization, we have a meeting coming up on Wednesday the 11th, and we'll be presenting a modified version of how the RSU will pay for future large projects, so those projects that would be bonded projects, and what that will look like. And as soon as we nail that down, then I will bring that back to the AOS, and we will begin, and then I will share a new plan with the state so that we can put it on the ballot in November. And always check out our social media outreach on the AOS Facebook page, or check out the reorganization website.
You can also call us or email us if that's a better venue for us. Anyone on the RPC is happy to talk to you by phone, take a walk with you, go for a drink with you, whatever. We are here to have conversations and answer questions. So, Carrie, Susan, Jacques, we're here. Brian, yeah.
And Aaron.
Aaron.
But that meeting's on the 13th. Call any of you anytime.
The 13th.
Oh, on the 13th, oh.
Time into the bar.
And I don't have any legislative updates.
Cool.
Okay, are there questions from the superintendent report? Okay. Directors of Teaching and Learning. I see Rhonda and Julie here. Take it away.
We want to leave plenty of time for Dawn to talk about her GT, so just a couple of quick things. But one of the new things in the note this month was the High Impact Teaching Framework Teacher Handbook that we're working on, and so we're collecting more feedback on that. And we'll circle back around to that once it's more in a finished state. And then summer instructional grant applications have been coming in, and the high school, I think the end of the week, those are due, and for pre-K to 8, they're due May 29th. So we'll circle back around to those as well to let you know how many and for what types of projects people will be working on. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Julie and Rhonda? Okay, transportation update. Santa is here.
That high up. Oh,
Oh, sorry, oh.
yes.
Oh, you were saying you wanted her to do her
Oh, no, we
presentation?
have a presentation ready.
Oh, I thought you,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm
Yes.
sorry. No, I thought you were
That's
saying.
it.
Oh, yeah, you thought it was a
were
quick
seating
thing,
yourself.
sorry.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
Mike, would you turn over the screen, and then I can embarrass Dawn while she's futzing with the technology a little bit. Well, I'm going to, you do so cool things. So, does everybody know Dawn Burgess? Some do, some don't. She, I think, was hired at the same time I was hired, so 14 or 15 years ago, right, to come teach math in the high school. And about 5 years ago, you started taking on the GT responsibilities as well. And she's been instrumental in helping our district GT team kind of rethink a little bit in light of kind of the post-COVID world, some new research we were learning about, in particular a lot centering around discriminatory practices with GT. And it began to, prompt our group to do some self-study, to do some more research, and then reframe our work. And she's going to talk all about that. But she's wicked smart. So she has a PhD in geophysics, so I have to brag about that. And she also, she shot a deer out of her bathroom window and was skinned it and gave venison to everybody. I'm like, how do you have this breadth of talent? Anyways, she's very interesting and cool. And so, without further ado.
I have a lot of follow-up.
I did have a depredation
I
permit.
think it was illegal.
Somehow that makes the rounds more than just about anything else people know about. Okay. So I really appreciate the chance to talk about the changes that we've made over the last 5-10 years. in the gifted and talented services at MDI, it was pretty rigid 10 years ago, and it was rooted in some outdated conceptions of gifted identification and services. And we, as a whole district, or a few other of the elementary and middle school specialists here, have worked really hard to try to sort of bring it into the 21st century and to make it part of our multi-tiered systems of support. And so through that work, I think we obtained a lot of clarity and some integration both in our district schools and with the MTSS process. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to walk through the three main things that were impacted by the work that we did. We started with changing our philosophy, using the research to drive changes in the way we conceptualize our gifted and talented program. Then we used our changes in the philosophy to change the way we screen and identify students. And then finally, we worked through the MTSS program to change our provision of services from sort of a labeling scheme to a provision of services that meets the needs of the individual students. So now about the philosophy. We did pass out, I think 2 years ago, our new updated program of services for gifted and talented.
It's on the website, so.
Yeah, it's on the website. It was a long time ago, though, and we really haven't sort of disseminated it more broadly. And so this is sort of what prompted this presentation. So we're shifting from sort of a durable, permanent label of giftedness for students to a support system that encourages us to identify students who maybe have the potential to really thrive and grow, and rather than label them as gifted, we want to sort of cultivate gifted behaviors in those students. So we're not identifying, we're cultivating. And the reason for that is because even high ability learners really need support in order to continue to grow. It's not enough to just sort of let them chill at the level that they're at and think they're going to grow on their own. They need teaching and learning just like other students do. So our old model was about identifying students, and it was pretty rigid. Specialists and teachers would identify the top 3 to 5% of students in each grade level in the district, which meant we used sort of a single cut score for test scores and behavioral checklists for the whole district. The specialists then would collaborate with teachers to create a learning plan for each identified student, even if the student was doing just fine, was thriving, and didn't really have any additional needs in order to continue to grow. And then each school would share their list of identified students with the Department of Education. I used to work for the Department of Energy, so DOE is a little confusing. Okay, so but there were some issues with this. There we go. This program. First of all, it encouraged that rigidity. If you're going to say I'm only going to identify 3 to 5% of kids, and they're the ones that are going to get services, we got a lot of pushback from parents. Right? And so we would say, no, that's the score, these are the criteria, and we, it ended up really being more of a labeling exercise than truly providing services. Unfortunately, that 3 to 5%, especially because it was applied over at a district cut score, sometimes meant that students in one grade in some of the smaller schools might have no identified students, or 1 or 2, whereas the larger schools might have a larger group of students identified, which means those kids didn't have somebody to work with on those extensions or special projects. Too often, that 3 to 5% labeling overlooked students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Almost all of our identified students were from high socioeconomic families whose parents were highly educated. And so when there were students with, strong intellectual ability whose parents weren't part of that cohort, they tended to get overlooked because they didn't have the preparation that let them hit that 3 to 5% right off the bat. We spent a lot of time having meetings, checking boxes, writing plans for students who really didn't need them. And so it ended up almost being like, I don't know, like a prize we hand out. You get to go work on this little special project because you're gifted. And I think one of the worst things about this was it's damaging to the mindsets of both identified students and non-identified students. The identified students think that being gifted is a thing you are. And heaven forbid you don't score well enough to hit the cut score in 5th grade when you did in 2nd grade, because now you're not gifted anymore. And then the other kids who weren't identified would think, well, I'm just not one of the smart ones. And then they would never be presented with the opportunities that were presented to the kids who were in the top 3 to 5%. And that's just not how modern research says that giftedness works. And this is my favorite. There are lots of different models of how giftedness works. This is my favorite one, partly because of the visual and partly because of how dynamic it is. It's the 3-ring model of giftedness from Joseph Renzulli. He's from UConn, I think. Well-known guy in the field of gifted education. His theory is that gifted behaviors, a little light bulb here, occur with the overlapping of different conditions. One of those conditions is being well above average in your abilities, but not necessarily the 3 to 5%. I mean, in the top 20%, you may have everything you need to become a truly remarkably talented adult. Because it's not just about raw academic ability. Creativity and like the curiosity and creative problem solving are a big part of that. Do you think outside the box? And then task commitment. Do you have the determination or the grit or the particularly focused interest to try again and again and again until you get really good at something? And all those three things overlap to create what we call gifted behaviors. And they're dynamic. So based on that model, we kind of revamped and we felt bad about our old model, actually. It was really not fun to go through that checklist. We really wanted the opportunity to help kids really, really become remarkable in their fields. So in our new model, the center of it is the classroom. Because no matter whether you're identified or not, you spend almost all of your time at school in the regular classroom with your regular classroom teacher. And if that's not an enriching environment, then you can't make up with it with one pull out a week. So in the new model, we're going to be centering on, and this is a work in progress, we're centering on the idea of teachers working together to create curricula that are available, accessible, to students who are, what was the word I used? Novices, yes, thank you. So to novice students that have room for more advanced students to still try to do things they don't know how to do yet. So that's called a low floor, high ceiling task. Universal design for learning is one of the latest things we've been sort of playing with at the high school level. At the whole district level, is it?
Yeah, we're getting there.
We're getting there. Don't worry, it's going to be a slow rollout. But that's the goal, is that the students spend most of their time in the classroom getting some opportunities to really work hard on things they don't understand. But kids don't always take all the opportunities they're given, right? So we have the talent pool where we try to identify what we think, and I'll talk more about how we identify them. Top 20-ish% of students in any subject area, and we want to keep an eye and make sure that they are taking those opportunities to sort of grow in the classroom. We also want to make sure they're aware of maybe extracurricular opportunities. There might be some very brief events that they're invited to, just to make sure that they're sort of aware that we expect them to try hard, right, and to learn a lot.
Can I give you a support, give you a moment to grade too? I couldn't have cued the high
high school presentation any better, right? It was the National History Day celebration, and you had missed it, but we had one of our winners present, and that is an example of someone who might have, might have maybe missed, well, he was probably the 3 to 5% I get, but we're broadening that, opportunity to the 20th percent to make sure we're extending opportunities for our students. So,
Yeah, and I'll
Yeah.
talk more about that when we get to a later slide, because he is actually one of the self-advocates.
Oh, good.
Okay, yeah, so, I mean, he advocated for the opportunity to do an independent study to create that, so that was outstanding. So then there are going to be students that this monitoring and nudging and sort of, we nudge, we encourage, isn't enough because they're missing some skills. Maybe they never learned how to study, right? It happens when kids go through classes that are easy for them. Maybe they're struggling with perfectionism, which is really common among gifted kids, and they need some coaching around how to defeat that internal editor that tells you you're not enough. Maybe they are 3 grade levels ahead in one subject or another, and they just need a completely different curriculum. So students in those situations, which are, not all classes maybe, not every year maybe, may need a plan that provides them with an extended, long-term additional support. And then it'll be done, and they don't need it again next year or next semester. So this is sort of the 3 levels of services that we provide in the new model. We expect their level of need to change because gifted behavior, my pal Joe Renzulli says, it occurs in, it manifests in certain people at certain times under certain conditions. So not everybody, not always, and not everywhere. And so you shouldn't expect a gifted kid to be gifted at everything, or all the time, or everywhere. So the benefits of redesigning it this way are that more students can access complex learning because it's happening in the classroom. And because 20% of them instead of 3 to 5% of them are being notified of all these other opportunities. And that means that even in the small schools, some of the top students can have a cohort working on something that they're interested in at higher levels. High ability students learn productive struggle, which is one of the hardest things for really bright students, is they don't know how to handle it when they don't know how to do it, right? They haven't learned the strategies to work through hard problems and understanding that mistakes are real learning and are important. We don't have even a whole GT position except at Connors, Emerson, and here. No, I'm not whole, that's right. I teach AP statistics too, so I'm a part-time specialist. We don't have a lot of time, and so it's better to spend our time addressing individual needs with curriculum or coaching, or acting as a consultant for classroom teachers, or monitoring those 20%, rather than meeting with the teachers twice a year and ticking boxes. Students learn that intelligence isn't fixed, and that can be increased through practice and strategic effort, but it's a lot, right? So if we're going to be just screening for well above average ability, not the top 3 to 5%, how do we go about doing it? State statute, it's called Chapter 104, requires that we use both subjective measures and objective measures to identify gifted students. Stories and scores, test scores, basically. So that already was part of our plan back 5, 8, 10 years ago, but we just had a cut score for those test scores. If you didn't get a 136, you were not gifted. And so it's important that we use those variety of measures, but have a little more flexibility about how they're used. And then we were supposed to test them at multiple stages, because we know that one test score or one checklist doesn't define a kid. And so we want to give them as many opportunities for us to catch them, for them to catch our attention. We don't want to put gates in the way. We're trying to find them, right? We're not trying to exclude them. And so the subjective measures that we use, teacher and staff nominations, we've always done this, is a holistic way to identify students. The classroom teachers spend the most time with them. They know a lot about them, and they can at any time say, I want you to take a look at this student. And I've gotten some great nominations that way of students who are kind of flying under the radar, and a teacher noticed them. But this is subject to bias. There's a lot of evidence that compliance and outgoingness and friendliness, basically, are the things that are most likely to get you identified. Okay? That kids who really don't engage may be completely overlooked. Kids who are combative may be completely overlooked or just thought to be sort of behavioral problems, but those kids are just as likely to be gifted as any other student. This, I think, is the big thing. So this is parent, peer, and self-nomination. We want to make sure that parents can nominate their kids to be in the talent pool, because not all exceptional skill and gifted behavior happens in a classroom. Sometimes it's something that happens outside the classroom and the kid just doesn't get that fed at school. And so parents are able to nominate their students, kids are able to nominate themselves, and peers are able to say, hey, you know, this kid's really musically talented, or did you see, you know, this kid, you know, I think you should be coming with me to my talent pool thing. They can bring their friends along. This is also subject to bias, because the parents who are most likely to nominate their kids to be in the talent pool are the ones who are high socioeconomic status and highly educated. So again. And so in order to kind of combat the bias, we have some formalized rating scale of the 6-2 rating scale tool, which is supposed to be one of the least culturally biased rating scales out there. And there are forms available for leadership and creativity, as well as general intellectual ability in different subject areas. But it takes a long time to fill one out. And so we don't use any of these things as our universal screening, because having a teacher fill out one of those forms for every single one of their students would be really, really time consuming, and might lead to some automaticity there that we want to avoid. So our universal screening happens 3 times during a kid's career. It's objective assessments, test scores, and the 2 tests that we use are the NWEA, which is an achievement test, reading and math. And by achievement test, I mean it tests how well kids do on materials that they should be taught in school at their grade level, and a couple grade levels above. It's adaptive. But it's curricular. It's not something that you're going to figure out on your own. One of the best comments I get from my students when they're taking the NWEA is, what is I? And the letter I represents the imaginary part of a number, and it's something that none of the students have seen until they get into Algebra 2 or pre-calculus. So when they say, what is I kept getting questions about I, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't just a variable. You're like, yes, you were getting really hard questions, which means you were doing really well. Okay, so that's kind of cool. But we also have a cognitive abilities test, the COGAT, which is not curricular. It's puzzles using words or numbers or shapes. There are 3 different sub-tests, the verbal, the quantitative, and the nonverbal. So these are things that are supposed to test reasoning, and they're not dependent on whether you've been taught something or not. None of the things that are in the test are things that are really taught. The only exception to that is the verbal ones for the upper grades are very vocabulary heavy. And so I think that is biased against English language learners, which I've seen instances where a student's a really good writer, but then they score pretty poorly on the verbal. which is an indication they're doing a lot with a little, right? You can be a really good writer with a limited vocabulary, but if you have a limited vocabulary, it's important to know that because that's a way that you can help that student grow even more. So these testing things are important. We start them in grade 2. Not all schools give the NOEA in grade 2, but all schools give the COGAT. Because students come to school with very different backgrounds. Some of them arrive in the classroom already able to read, already knowing how to multiply, some things that the rest of the kids are still not able to do. And we have to meet them where they are. I mean, you can't just let them sit there and relearn all the stuff they already know. It's not good for their growth mindset, their ability to become a good learner. And we also are introducing students to the idea of standardized testing, right? So they haven't really seen it before. There are tools in the COGAT that accommodate young learners. There are a lot of the verbal ability tests are based on pictures and not on being able to read. So that said, if it's too much, not every second grader is ready to take a test, no matter how bright they are. If we don't want kids crying over the test. If it's not working, we don't push it because we'll test them again at 5th grade. And by 5th grade, the kids have all seen standardized tests. We want to prepare them for the transition to sort of subject-based learning so that they have a smooth transition to middle school where they're going to be moving from teacher to teacher for their subject areas. Some of them may want to accelerate in a particular subject, and this is where we might see that is supported. They might be ready for advanced challenges that come in middle school, like the Science Olympiad, like the math team, which I think is 6th grade and up, right? Is that right, Mary? Yeah. So all these other things become available to students in middle school. We want to be able to identify if they're ready for that, because this will have changed since 2nd grade. And it also can start to highlight things like students who score well on the reasoning test, but not doing well in school. So we can see curricular versus reasoning ability mismatches, and we can maybe start to work on them and see if we can find out what's going on. And then again in 8th grade, because kids are about to move to the high school where they're going to have teachers who don't know them for the most part, they're moving to the high school with brains that are just on fire with new connections. The adolescent brain is really changing. Social and emotional learning that worked well for them in middle school might not be working well for them as they move to high school. There's just a lot going on, and it can affect their reasoning as well as their curricular performance, and we want to know when things have changed. One of the biggest things is it lets, especially the COGAT, which has the verbal, nonverbal, and quantitative scores, it lets us coach students in metacognition. How do you think about thinking? How do you do your math? How are you thinking about words? And how can you use strengths in one area to sort of boost you in other areas so that you can grow, because you can get better at reasoning. It identifies, again, potential for kids who haven't been into the talent pool, one more chance to catch them before they get to high school. And it ensures that we provide appropriate scaffolds for students who maybe scored really well curricularly but had some reasoning deficits maybe. And so we might want to make sure that we have support available to them and are ready for them to need that support if they want to take an advanced class. Because, and I'm going to show you the next slides, get ready for the graphs. There's a lot of movement and ability between 5th and 8th grade. All right, so there's my graph. Each one of these dots is a student in our district, an 8th grader in our district, who has a score in both 8th grade and 5th grade on, this is the quantitative part of the COGAT test. For instance, this student is a student who, in 5th grade, the horizontal axis here, scored in the 96th percentile on the quantitative COGAT. That's better than 96% of his peers nationwide. Really high score. In 8th grade, he scored a 57. And we have no idea why. It's one test. It could be he just had a bad day, maybe he had the flu, I don't know. It could also be that he's been having a rough middle school and has disengaged some and isn't learning as much as he wanted to. It could be as simple as he didn't try that day, or that he was perseverating on the right answer and didn't finish. Okay? There are lots of reasons why students will score differently, but it's important to know that if we're going to be basing anything in high school on the testing that we do in middle school.
Who's that one kid?
Hmm?
That one kid?
Yeah,
Who's at the very
right.
top?
Yeah.
Future valedictorian.
Well, we don't know. It's really hard to predict which adults are going to be outstanding based on how they do in fifth grade, even eighth grade, even college, right? That's why this is so messy. And this is why we've opened the gates a bit, because we can't predict that the top 3 to 5% are going to be the ones that are going to like figure it out. Yeah.
Just to confirm, what you showed was the statistic from 5th grade to 8th grade? And so conceivably, as you've changed your philosophy and the way you're working, it's also an indicator that it could be missing support networks.
It could be. I mean, the changes that we're implementing, we're just at the beginning stages
Yeah,
of that
right.
implementation.
But
yeah.
it just shows how important what you're talking about
It's
is.
worth having a conversation with that kid, for one thing, and finding out something about what's going on, what happened that day, and what's going on in their life, and how they feel about school, and all sorts of things. You know, was our service promise one conversation at a time? Yeah, it matters, and and each of these dots is a real kid. Right? A real kid who has a real life and lots of reasons behind everything that happens. This kid, for example, was in the 42nd percentile in 5th grade. And in 8th grade, this score is in the 86th percentile. And I want to make the point that this could be a fluke, right? This is not a fluke. It's really statistically unlikely to answer all the questions right. Okay? You don't get a high score by chance. If you're guessing because you're bored or you're irritated or you don't feel good, you're going to get a low score. You should be right around there, right? Statistically. So that could be a fluke, but the high score, if a kid ever scores really high on one of these tests, and then they score lower, that doesn't mean they got dumb. I mean, maybe, you know, they were sick or they had a head injury or they're in a situation that's really taking all of their brain space just to be present. But they're not going to accidentally get an 86th percentile. And it moves a lot. The only kids who did the same in 5th grade and in 8th grade are the kids on that diagonal line. And there aren't very many of them. Right? The kids above it improved from 5th grade to 8th grade, and the kids below it declined from 5th grade to 8th grade in their scores. And so it's really important that we keep looking and we keep trying to catch them excelling. So we've got all these kids, right? We don't know which ones are really going to take off, but we want to provide opportunities to all of them to take off. And so the best tool for that is to assume that we can provide them scaffolds to both rise above the benchmarks for the grade. So that's the key thing we're trying to do with multi-tier systems of support. How can we encourage students to thrive, learn, and grow at the highest levels as well as at benchmarks? So this is sort of a comprehensive framework for MTSS. Okay, it's for all learners from below grade level to above. And I use the same symbols because this is just as critical as this. Okay? The biggest area is the classroom, because that's where kids spend most of the time. We really have to invest most of our effort to make sure that that's as good as it can be. But when that's not enough, we've talked a lot about having sort of scaffolding and intensive interventions for students who aren't meeting benchmarks. But for kids who start above benchmarks, we sometimes this isn't enough. We need scaffolding to get them to try the more difficult assignments or the more professional product at the end. And sometimes that's not enough. If a kid needs an advanced curriculum, maybe needs to skip a grade, or skip a grade in just a single subject. Maybe they need coaching on executive function or perfection. They don't know how to plan their way out of a wet paper bag because they've never had to. They could just, come up with the answer like that. Those are things that we can pull them aside, find time, hopefully in flex time, to do that, or before and after school, and really teach them what they need in time to get them back climbing that ladder on their own. This is really important. We're screening for advanced ability, not for fixed intelligence. Okay? It's really important that the kids know that too. That ability is not fixed. It changes with opportunity, motivation, support, mentorship. It can change at school. It can change in the summer. I've seen kids come back after summer and be like, wow, I really decided I'm going to work hard. I really decided I'm super interested in this thing because I worked with my cousin and that's like the coolest thing I ever saw. But we need to make sure that we let them know that reasoning, just like any other skill or ability, can be improved over time. Individual scores or behaviors can improve or decline at various times. And so we have to continue to monitor student success and support their growth. We have to not just identify giftedness, but cultivate it. But it's hard. Okay, so this is, I'm going to end with a quote. John Tukey is a super cool American statistician. He wrote a big thing about data analysis, the future of data analysis. And in that paper, he said, far better an approximate answer to the right question, which is often vague, than the exact answer to the wrong question, which can always be made precise. Okay, we've been asking the wrong question before with our old model. Okay, the wrong question, who's gifted? I could give you a number and say, there you go, I've got a precise answer. And if I get pushback, I've got something to stand behind, right? But the right question is, who is going to benefit from gifted services? Who's capable of going beyond where they are right now? That's a much less exact question. The answer is not exact. We don't know. And so, but it's the right question to be asking. And so we're trying to ask that question and provide services for kids so that they really can be amazing. That's it.
Thank you, Dawn. Really great presentation. So one of the things that comes into this, though, in our district is equity. And, I'm in Tremont. We have always had a deficit in the amount of time that's allotted to not only working with the kids that are that have been identified as gifted in the old formula, but also in identifying those kids at the younger level and showing them the path to what they can do. And we're working really hard right now on trying to beef up our services for those kids, and that means hiring more staff, which means pissing off our taxpayers. But we're working really hard on that. And so I guess one of my questions for you is, what does this look like from a staffing model at any one of our individual elementary schools, so that all of these schools have the same path for these kids and the same opportunities for them to be identified, cultivated, and challenged? Because you can't just put it all on the school, on the classroom teachers. That's just going to become too much for them.
We need professional development on methods, because when we talk about differentiating for high-end learners, a lot of times that was, okay, here's the lesson for these kids, and then there's this lesson for those kids, and there's this, so you've got to write 3 lesson plans for every subject. We don't want to have teachers doing that. We want to design the learning so that it's less defined. Kids get to do some choosing, and so one lesson can serve those groups much more strongly. And it has to happen in the classroom, because no matter how many gifted and talented specialists you have, you can't have one of them with every kid who has the potential to excel. But yeah, it is an issue. I think
Yeah, I know, I feel bad you're
Consolidated
answering
school
like the
district
district, staffing issue, but I will share, I feel like our office is really doing its best to inform you, right? So when you're showing up with these boards, you understand what GT is all about now and what we're hoping to accomplish. And I know the state has broadened its concept of GT, and it's really enveloped it into the multi-tiered systems of support framework. So, I mean, is it great to have a GT teacher on staff? Yeah, because they have a certain level of expertise that they're able to bring to the table. Can you still service advanced learners without the GT specialist? Yes, there are other people who are bringing strengths and that mindset to the table. So we're trying to create these systems that will support that regardless of whether or not you have the named person
Yeah.
doing that work.
And we want to also create like resources for classroom teachers to see how they might, like if I'm studying something in reading, here's a list of Lexile level books, easily accessible so you don't have to go digging through it yourself for fourth graders doing this kind of a unit. I'd love to have that available. Aren't you
That's on
working on
next
putting
year's
that together?
plan.
Huh?
Next year's plan.
Next year's. Yes.
So I think part of the genius of what you all have been talking about is this idea that, yes, if you have the appropriate plan for the classroom, everybody gets appropriately challenged. So there's a couple things. I always hear your presentations, and I get so fired up and excited. And I'm just wondering, truly, if you could, if there's a way that would have like a kind of a Gantt chart, it's like, here's where we are now, here's where we're gonna be next year, and here's where this is when you should be sitting with your first grade teacher, hearing this stuff come back at you, right? That's one thing. And the other thing is that this to me is like an embodiment of why when you pay attention to, we'll call it these smaller groups of students, the gifted students, or the students who need a little bit more, when you really solve the issues for them, you solve issues for everyone. And that's what I want people to see in terms of all of our issues.
Yes.
So they're no longer hot buttons that fade, come back when there's a particularly horrible thing happening in the world. But we realize that if we pay attention to all of our community members, it benefits all of our community.
Right, it's not pie, right?
It's
We don't run out.
not. So it's really cool that we don't have to have a whole separate staff for that. But
Yeah.
because it really becomes something that the teacher is no longer overwhelmed. They're like, what? Oh my goodness, I got tools for everybody. Let's go, right? There
Yeah.
should be no resistance.
Well, and I agree that is so important.
Yeah.
And it is still necessary to have somebody who's ready for, like, what is it like when a kid is, there's this thing called, Mary, help me, when they don't develop at the same rate.
When they don't develop the same.
Asynchronous development, okay? Asynchronous development, like in terms of on the playground, he's a third grader. In the math classroom, he's a ninth grader. You know, and how do you
Yes.
help a kid deal with that? That really does need somebody who's familiar with how gifted kids do. But we can also act as a resource for classroom teachers when they encounter something that's not working.
Yeah. But truly, is that possible? I hate to throw more work at you, but to truly have a Gantt chart, because I'm truly.
I have a
get so excited.
spreadsheet, FYI, it's
Yeah.
coming probably in August,
Okay.
once we're finished with it.
We can make a
It-
Gantt chart.
You've already, I don't really like Gantt
Well,
charts.
Whatever works, but just something that.
Yeah,
We
one
do
of the
have a
problems-
visual of how we're plotting all of these components, and it will show you how it all fits into, we're connecting all the dots. It's pretty ambitious, I think we're gonna have it, you've already helped me with
Yeah.
the GT component.
Gantt charts are scary when you're a teacher looking at the whole thing and thinking, I've got to do all of that.
Yeah.
And so part of the idea of like chipping away at the classroom design of curriculum is, it's one thing, it's small, it's something that will help everybody,
Yeah.
and it'll make your job easier, and those are things that are a little less scary than, okay, in the next 5 years, we're gonna undertake this whole new thing, and here's how it's all gonna happen, and then everybody freaks out. Right?
No one's gonna freak out, it's gonna be great.
Anybody else? Yes.
To tie it in with last month's presentation on the teacher who's teaching children how to use AI, is there any plan to help the teachers learn how to use AI to develop those
Yes.
different?
I have
Okay.
used it
Great.
to create study bots for students who are in different different areas. I'm teaching AP statistics, and they can say, I need to work on this particular type of inference, and give me a question about this. Can you give me one that's harder?
Like plans to teach all, like elementary school teachers, how to use it also.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yes, I mean, I know, I feel like that's.
But
not
that's
your
not my
question,
job.
that's my
That's
question, yeah.
Kate's job.
Okay.
The answer is
Question for you.
yes, and
Yeah.
we are rolling out our plan for PD next year. Probably not till August, but that is part of the strategic plan, yes.
It could make them taking that on much easier.
Correct. And we've already rolled that out in smaller groups. We had
Awesome.
Dawn mentioned universal design for learning. That's the idea that you're designing for everybody at once. And this past year, we had a professional learning opportunity after school. It was with Kate, who was our presenter last year, and Kelly Sanborn, who's one of our special ed teachers here at the high school, showing how to leverage the tool to access all learners.
Awesome.
So we're starting in a small group, but we'll be more strategic and systematic during PD time next year.
I love this, and
I know.
it's so great, and I'm so
It's
glad
for transportation.
you came. Yeah, this is, I mean, I think this is wonderful, and it's something we've wanted to hear about for a long time. I am conscious of the time that we have, and I just don't want to, I want to be respectful of people's time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mine won't be as exciting as that. So,
John's brought our expectations up, so you better.
so I wanted to share some information about, where we are with transportation in the district. I wanted to first identify, our current personnel needs. The district is, looking for 5 additional drivers to, stabilize, our current routes. 2 are for Tremont, 2 for Pematic, and 1 for Mount Desert. And, to meet those needs, our Tremont folks are retiring this year, so that gap we'll be looking at next year. Pematic, we have 2 drivers, and we have, the head custodian driving a bus, and we have teachers sort of filling in the gaps there. Mount Desert had 2 drivers. We are managing, utilizing SEER for 1 driver for them next year to get them closer to their need. But like I said, principals and substitute, and teachers have been sort of managing that gap in drivers sort of this year. In terms of recruitment and training, we have 7 candidates in the pipeline that are currently working with Warren. 3 of them are working towards being route drivers. 2 of those will be available for next year. 1 will be available potentially the year after or in January. And then we have 4 trip drivers. So those are drivers that can be used for extracurricular or other trips that a school might have for field trips and things like that. And we're also taking a two-track strategy. One is local recruitment, advertising for our local positions and to create some full-time stability. But I did meet with SEER, and they are leveraging their ability to talk to drivers within their network that work and live in, the Old Town region and connect with the group that's coming here to be part of that, or to advertise in our area. We have 1 driver that works for SEER and is in our area. They get a 40-hour work week. And so that's something that, they'll be leveraging to find drivers to support us. And they're also willing to train and do all that for our drivers' needs. And I'll be meeting with them in 2 weeks to sort of discuss other aspects of supporting our transportation system. So that was really good. In terms of route optimization, I am meeting with Warren on Tuesday, the 19th. He has finally been able to pull all the pieces together to see what a combined run looks like for elementary and high school students riding on the same bus. Right now, and so I will take a look at that, and that will help with high school start times and hopefully be more efficient. So once I take a look at what he has developed with the computer, the next step will be to take that to local drivers to see whether or not it's possible, or what are some of the hiccups that might be seen in what you can find through the computer and what is the reality when you're on the road. I hope to have something back for our June meeting, especially on the route optimization piece, to see where we can make some of the magic happen. And so that's the goal right now. I'm excited to see what Warren has come up with, and see how that can come to life. So the next steps, sort of following that, the route optimization, is to finalize route design, the routing data, planning for optimized student transportation. Contract viability means assessing external partnerships and see how that goes, and planning and restructuring and ensuring a viable transportation model for the upcoming school year. So that's my hope, and hopefully we can draw some other folks either from the Old Town area to come down with that group, or in advertising, here, there would be an employee of SEER, and they would get a 40-hour work week for being a bus driver. So that, we're a little bit closer, and I hope to have more answers in June, but I just wanted to make sure that you sort of had that sort of fuller picture of where we stand right now.
Harry?
So I'm not clear on the 40-hour work week portion of this. Does that mean that we're paying them for 40 hours no matter how many hours they're working?
They, right now, the drivers for SEER, they, in their contract, well, a driver that's working locally here, they get 40 hours.
Okay.
Though they might be working 32.5. That was something that they designed to help gather people, because their folks from SEER are getting more than 40 hours because they're driving from SEER, coming down, and then having to go back up. So their days are like 5 o'clock in the morning till
I think
5 or
what
6
Carrie's
at
asking
night.
is who pays, if they work 32 hours for us, who pays the 8 hours?
Well, right now, if we're contracting with SEER, we're paying whatever their contract number is for that driver, if it's a local driver, which they would be paying them 40 hours.
So if we've got drivers who are being paid for 40 hours but are only driving for 32 hours, can we consider what I mentioned in the last meeting, which is a after-school activities bus that takes like one route on each side of the island and runs kids home who might not be able to participate in activities because they don't have parents who can get out of work to pick them up?
That might be possible.
Tyson,
Yeah, so, are we looking at it as two different, like, is SEER, are we proposing that SEER would take over all of it, or are we just,
No,
this is just a
right now, we're
solution?
looking, they can't.
Okay.
They can't. So we're trying to optimize where we can and utilize them, and maybe grow that into something in the future. But they can't. I can't say I need 5 drivers. They can't.
They don't have it.
They don't have it.
So our competitors are really like fuel companies, like other people with CDL licenses
CDL
that are
licenses.
getting like 50, 60 hours and huge pay for hazardous chemicals and stuff like that, but that's the, okay. And then do we offer benefits, like is that, or is that like a SEER?
Well, SEER has their, they have a whole package that they provide their drivers. For us, yes, we provide benefits for our drivers. And
They're in the support.
they're in the support
Got it,
staff.
okay.
CDA.
Right, just trying to see how, like, it's not, it's potentially appealing as a job, but like if you're thinking that you're getting hazard pay for trucking fuel around and getting more money, I can see why. This is less stress, but also less income.
Middle schoolers,
Most explosives.
Yeah.
How can we support you?
When you start seeing ads or you know people who might be interested, you know, say how wonderful it is to be a bus driver. How it's fabulous to be that smiling face in the morning and to be that person that sort of sends kids off in the afternoon. So it's, you know, it can be a great opportunity.
I mean, I think the other important thing is that we have pressed so hard for a lot different high school start times and other things. I think it's important as the board that we really get behind supporting an optimized route. Whether, you know, any change, there's gonna be conversation. I like this, I don't like this, whatever. I think, like, we've asked for this to happen, so it's
Yeah.
important for us to, provide that support. So,
Yeah. As if this work, you know, really comes to fruition, it'd be really important to provide support when you start hearing from community members. For, thank you for your support, and against, let me tell you how this really works for us, types of conversations.
Other questions about the transportation update? I hear the sleigh bells jingling in anticipation of the next meeting.
Again, really sorry about that.
It's never ending though. You started a monster season. Okay, so we had the gifted and talented presentation. Thank you so much, Dawn. Discussion items.
Middle school committee.
Oh, middle school committee, sorry, I'm one second out of order and there's no hope. Middle school committee update.
And so, I will be reaching out to some of you, because when we presented this in October, we asked for at least 3 school board members, school principal, director of teaching and learning, a teacher representative in operations. So this week I'll be reaching out to some folks to see if they'd be willing to embark on this goal, and I should put this back up again. And just a reminder.
Also, if you have a burning desire to do it, I mean, we haven't received a lot of inquiries, but if you have a burning desire, you should also reach out to Mike or myself here.
And the charge really of what this group will do is really exploring options of a single middle school and to decide the composition of that middle school. Is it going to be 6, 7, 8? Is it going to be 7, 8? Within the concepts of sort of future, you know, current demands and what the future might hold. And then trying to decide whether it's something that could happen within an RSU, but if an RSU doesn't happen, help sort of define what might be another way to create a middle school if you didn't have an RSU. And that could be a special private and special act to create a middle school on Mount Desert Island, or to potentially open up the high school CSD to incorporate a middle school. That could be a way. And then the group would then sort of identify potential locations. Is the high school space, is it viable? Can you put a building here? Or potentially add a wing onto this school to make that happen? Or is there land somewhere nearby where we can build a potential middle school and sort of figure out what that cost might be? So that's really the work of this group.
Marie?
Will you be starting with the work that was previously done?
Oh, yeah. And so the work is sort of grounded in the why, the shared vision that we've already set that shared vision. And so that work is solid
And so MDIRSS committee should be really clear that they're leaving where that group left off, like there's no going back to like
Square one.
Yeah, and rehashing and revising and whatever. It's going from there and moving forward. And this is more of a physical plan, like where and how much would it cost and things of discussion than a like philosophies about middle level education or something. I think, is that what you're,
Yeah,
yeah,
Yep.
there are recommendations for a lot of these questions in there
yeah,
about what grade levels, why,
there are, yes.
what capacity, where, so that's why I asked that. If you're gonna re-ask those questions, and you're gonna start with the data that was gathered to answer those questions before. Not
Yeah.
that it was perfect, but.
Yes, it's like starting, yes, it's not if it's already been answered in that, then it would go from there.
Great.
So some of you may get an email from me.
But if you want to do this and you don't
And if
get an
you want-
email, reach
yes.
out. Any other questions? Okay, discussion items. Recommendations from local boards for teacher negotiation members. Are there people? I'll just go, Bar Harbor, do you have a person? Okay.
Pending details of the time of scheduling.
Yeah, I'm curious about the timeline and the schedule, like when does this commence and how much? Is it the same sort of structure of last time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know,
More control.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when does it start?
Once, I mean, fairly soon, because you know, there's some administrative stuff like gathering comps and stuff, but once that's happened, then the negotiation.
Probably in August.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marie?
Do you need, I guess, do you need full participation in August is what we're trying to narrow down some of these, I'm speaking for you,
Yeah.
but as the
My
chair.
schedule's very
what
busy in the
would
summer.
recommend you? Yeah,
Well,
so
then
I-
probably
I
the
would-
rubber's not really gonna hit the road until after the school year starts.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, does that work for you?
Yeah,
Ish?
that's better.
August will probably be
I know.
us reviewing the work that I've had sort of principals do and sort of running through the current CBA and asking questions. And I've had the business office staff do that. And I'll have our new HR coordinator do that as well. And then we'll review that together as a group. We'll probably do that in August. And then that will help shape what, defining what our interests are in each of the articles.
But the meat won't get really going until after the school year starts. So we're tentative on you.
Yeah.
Now dessert, do we have
Tell me.
okay. I'm representing from Tremont, Southwest 7%.
We did,
You're, yeah,
Maria.
Maria, okay, that's fine, okay. Who have I missed? Trenton, it's you, we already talked.
Yes, we
Yeah.
It's a good group.
Okay,
Thank you to those people.
Yeah,
for giving that time.
okay, unless there's more questions on that, moving on, then we will do first reading of revisions to policies on the cell phones based on the legislation.
so what you saw in your packet, those highlighted areas are sort of the new language. We basically took the tiered approach, we put the actual language of the law on top of that, and then sort of clarified everything. And so instead of a tiered approach, it's a bell-to-bell prohibition, and stating that all students pre-K through 12 are prohibited from using cell phones and other personal electronic devices. Took that same section that for students pre-K through, and separated it pre-K through 8 and 9-12, because there might be some differences. And so the first part is the pre-K through 8, and then we removed cell phones, smartwatches, are only used. Other PDs may only be used after dismissal. We sort of said that someplace else. maybe we shouldn't have struck those two things. The cell phones and smartwatches may only be used after dismissal, and they may be used during bus transportation for pre-K through 8. And then one other thing I just noticed is the exemptions part that stays in the 912 limited use. It would go in place of cell phone and smartwatches, and other PEDs may be used for exception. That would be replaced by exceptions to prohibition on use of granted. I have to be able to read. Exceptions to the prohibition on use may be granted for monitoring or management of health conditions in accordance with IEPs, health plans, things like that. And then the misuse of cell phones, that is pretty much the same. It's a broad level of either a verbal warning, confiscation of the cell phone or smartwatch, continued repeated violations may constitute a meeting with the parents and all that. But for specific consequences, we're asking that the handbook for students for pre-K through 8 have those listed, and the high school have those listed.
Any questions about this? Okay, this will come back next meeting for a second reading and adoption. Okay, action items, second reading and adoption of policies. These are the policies we brought over from the last meeting. It's okay with me if you take them as a slate.
I move to approve the slate. Do you need me to list them out, Selena, or World? Okay. And if you didn't look at it, the one thing we had a lot of discussion on last time was the meal reimbursement for travel, and it's I like it. 85 for up to 3 meals, or up to 40 for any one meal.
Is there a second? on the
Second.
slate? Okay, Catherine. Discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, these policies are adopted. And then we need to do the revisions now. Second reading and adoption of revisions to policies.
So we made revisions to the JLCC and then JLCD. That last page on the sunscreen, we had listed that for pre-K through 8th grade students, sunscreen will be added to the Power School yearly permissions form as a way of identifying that from of asking for written permission, that it'll be listed there, and those that, and the parents can check it off.
Is there a motion on this?
I move to adopt as a slate, JLCC, communicable infectious diseases, and JLCD, administration of medication to students.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Is there any public comment? See none. So, any other business? Are you raising your head for other business?
No, sorry.
Okay. You're sending covert.
I was just saying.
Okay. Future agenda items. We will have another transportation update. We will have our regular updates, and we'll have these policies that come back, and we'll have, what else?
We'll have evaluation of my team.
Yes, okay. Great. Next meeting, Monday, 8th of June, probably at 6, but as usual, keep your eyes peeled to your email going out for sure. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, pack your things.